Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, EU leaders head into high-stakes summit for Ukraine on Thursday. EU budget chief sees a deal on 50 billion euros. Hungary blocks both the start of EU membership talks and aid. Netanyahu vows to continue the offensive until victory is achieved. Despite international pressures, US, Britain impose more sanctions on Hamas officials. Home Ministry sets up committee to probe Parliament security breach. Accused booked under Anti-Terror Law, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And in sports, in Khelo India Para Games 2023, Haryana tops the medal table with 31 golds. Women's Football League Under-17 match today. European Union heads of state are set to meet in Brussels for a showdown summit on the bloc's future support for Ukraine. Hungary has threatened to veto the new aid money and blocked the start of membership talks with Kyiv, leading to frantic negotiations among the EU members. Alex Kadia gets us details from Brussels.
EU leaders will meet here on Thursday in the hope of signing off more than $50 billion of aid for Ukraine. The 27 heads of state will also discuss starting long-awaited accession talks with Kyiv, a process that would put the country firmly on a path to membership. 26 member states support both measures. One doesn't. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has threatened to veto the proposals, saying Ukraine is too corrupt and simply not ready to join the European Union. The Hungarian leader also said that Ukraine's vast agricultural sector could threaten the EU's common agricultural policy and eventually hurt European farmers. Despite attempts by European leaders to convince Hungary to lift its objections, Budapest still won't budge. French President Emmanuel Macron even invited his Hungarian counterpart for dinner at the Élysée Palace in Paris to try and change his position. One thing that could convince Hungary is money. A year ago, the European Commission froze more than $23 billion in EU funds for Hungary over concerns about democratic and rule of law backsliding under the Orban administration. On Wednesday, the European Commission unblocked nearly half of that money. Budapest says this isn't enough and that all the money should be unfrozen before it considers lifting its veto. As the leaders head to Brussels, breaking that deadlock and unlocking more support for Ukraine will be the top priority. Alex Kadia in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
European Union and Western Balkan leaders posed for a family photo as they gathered in Brussels for a summit that is focused on EU's enlargement and mutual cooperation with the region. While addressing the media, the EU president said that the new enlargement plan aims to explore the untapped potential of the Western Balkans. North Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina are potential candidates to join the bloc. Croatia was the last country to be the EU member in 2013, but the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict brought enlargement back to the top of the agenda.
If you look at the Western Balkan economies, they stand today at around 35% of the EU average. In other words, there's a lot of untapped potential. And this is what the new growth plan is looking at. There was a lot of praise for the new growth plan.
Shifting focus to Israel-Hamas conflict now, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is beginning a two-day visit to Israel as the U.S. steps up pressure on the country over its assault on Gaza. President Biden's top security official will hold talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over how to protect civilian casualties as well as hostages and humanitarian aid. It comes after President Biden said that Israel was starting to lose international support over what he described as indiscriminate bombing in Gaza. DD India's Kate Fisher has sent this report from Washington.
The White House is having to tread a really fine line here. They're trying to square those comments that President Biden made about this indiscriminate bombing. That's what he described it as. as well as saying that they do believe that Israel is trying to limit civilian casualties. But certainly Joe Biden's comments represent a real shift in tone from this steadfast support of Israel to something a little bit more nebulous. And it's amid these first notes of discord that Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, is heading to Israel for these meetings with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with President Isaac Herzog and the Israeli War Cabinet. And his message, the White House says, will be one of trying to work out the next phase of this military campaign and ensuring that it is more surgical and precise to reduce harm to civilians. So that really is the message from the US to Israel as Jake Sullivan heads there for these very important meetings. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
As Israel's counter-offensive continues in Gaza Strip, Prime Minister Netanyahu declared on Wednesday that his country would continue its war against Hamas in Gaza with or without international support. Moreover, the Israeli Prime Minister in a radio message also reiterated that nothing could stop his country from continuing the counter-offensives until it achieves victory against the militant group.
I
want you to pass this along to the last of the soldiers. We are continuing until the end, until victory, until Hamas is annihilated. Let there be no doubt about this. This is important. It is a message I want to convey to each and every soldier over there. Nothing will stop us. We will go to the end, to the victory, no less than that.
Meanwhile, US and UK have stepped in with an additional round of sanctions on more than a dozen Hamas fundraising officials. Both the countries, who initially showed strong support for Israel's counteroffensive against Hamas on Wednesday, imposed an additional round of sanctions on people in Turkey and elsewhere who are linked to the militant group. The sanctions target 8 officials who advance Hamas's agenda and interests abroad and help manage its finances. Israel announces its worst combat losses on Wednesday as the troops were ambushed trying to rescue another group of soldiers who had attacked Hamas fighters. The country reported the death of 10 soldiers in the past 24 hours, including a full colonel commanding a forward base and a lieutenant colonel commanding a regiment. According to the military officials, a total of 114 soldiers had been killed since the beginning of Gaza ground operations. Russian President Vladimir Putin has withdrawn from public activities to prepare for an upcoming year-end press conference on Thursday. The event will field questions from the public and journalists and Putin's announcement to run for a 5th term next March. Let's take a look at DD India's correspondent Dasha Chernyshova's report from Moscow.
As Russian President Vladimir Putin is preparing for the end-of-year press conference, Russians have sent over 1.5 million questions. The event that merges previously 2 separate events, President's press conference and televised call-in show, is expected to be a marathon of at least 3 hours. The Kremlin says Putin is choosing the questions himself and insists that foreign and Russian media will work at the event. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Putin will recap the year's results. The president is also expected to address some of the most pressing issues that include the special military operation in Ukraine, growing prices, devaluing national currency, problems related to housing and communal services, social support, healthcare and education. Russian lawmakers expect that the president will talk in detail about the tasks and trends that will define the country's further development and outline his vision for the future. In 2022, an almost annual press conference and call-in show were both cancelled. Dasha Chernysshova reporting in Moscow for DD India.
The U.S. House of Representatives voted to officially open an impeachment investigation into President Joe Biden as Republicans united behind the effort, even as Democrats said that they have yet to find any evidence of wrongdoing. The Republican-led House voted 221 to 212 in a party-line vote to open the investigation. The vote came hours after Hunter Biden declined a closed-door call to testify. The White House has dismissed the investigation as factless and politically motivated. Biden also gears up for a potential rematch with his Republican opponent Donald Trump in the 2024 election. Trump, who is the first US president ever impeached twice, calls the investigations politically motivated.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. New York stores are embracing the holiday season with elaborate window decorations, focusing on craftsmanship and surprise visitors. Saks and Dior collaborated on a luxury display featuring landmark scenes from New York and Paris, while Bloomingdale's celebrated the release of Wonka with a chocolate fountain and trapeze movements. December 13th, around 500 kayaks in central Copenhagen, adorned with Christmas lights, paraded along canals to celebrate St. Lucia, the traditional bearer of lights. The event has been happening for around 10 years now. Canoeists wore a traditional Lucia crown of candles associated with a 3rd century saint's day. Anthony Anderson, known for his roles in Blackish and Transformers, is set to host the 75th annual Primetime Emmys on January 15th. The ceremony was delayed due to Hollywood strikes in 2023. Anderson, who previously hosted We Are Family and has starred in films like Kangaroo Jack and Transformers, is considered the natural fit for the role. The comedy drama American Fiction, directed by Jeffrey Wright, seeks to portray the humanness of its protagonists, Thelonious and his family, along with Issa Rae as Cynthara Golden and Erica Alexander as Caroline. The film stars Tracy Ellis Ross and Sterling K. Brown.
Is me, and he and I are black.
Oh, bingo.
No bingo.
The Smithsonian National Gallery in Washington, D.C. has unveiled a portrait of Oprah Winfrey, painted by Chicago-based artist Sean Michael Warren. Winfrey, known for her talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, gained fame in 1986. Warren expressed gratitude for the opportunity to contribute to Winfrey's likeness to portraiture. Up next, we're heading for a short break, but to still come on this edition of DD India Live, India and European Free Trade Association member countries make progress on an agreement on free trade. Two sides say never been closer to a pact. Fed leaves interest rates unchanged. Chief says historic tightening of monetary policy is likely over. And Tesla recalls more than 2 million vehicles in the US over autopilot system to include additional controls and alerts to reinforce drivers' responsibility.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti. Let's get to national updates now. India's Home Ministry has ordered an inquiry into Parliament security breach. A committee has been set up under the Director General of the Central Reserve Police Forces with members from other security agencies and experts. The committee will investigate the reasons for breach in security, identify lapses and recommend further action. All the accused have been booked under Anti-Terror Law Unlawful Activities Prevention Act.
December 13 marks the 22nd anniversary of India's parliament attack. And just as the parliamentarians were paying their tributes to the martyrs, another security breach was witnessed in India's lower house. The proceeding of Lok Sabha was halted briefly on Wednesday after two men entered, setting off a smoke canister inside the legislature. This man, wearing a black jacket, jumped from the visitors' gallery into the chamber. The visuals clearly show that they entered the aisles by evading security personnel. White and yellow-coloured smoke could be seen. Later, the Delhi police detained both the accused from inside and identified them. Speaker Om Birla told members that investigations had found that the smoke released by the men was ordinary smoke.
हम सब की चिंता थी कि वह धुआं क्या था। वह अभी तक प्रारंभिक जांच में जो जांच की उसमें वह साधारण धुआं और सनसनी फैलने वाला धुआं था, इसलिए उस धुएं की कोई ऐसी चिंता का विषय नहीं, उसकी प्रारंभिक ठीक से जांच कर ली गई है.
The speaker assured lawmakers that the incident would be investigated and a report presented to the House.
प्रारंभिक जांच के अंदर जो प्रारंभिक जांच आए वो दोनों लोग पकड़ लिए गए हैं, उनकी सारी सामग्री को जब्त कर लिया गया है और जो दो लोग बाहर थे उनको भी गिरफ्तार कर लिया गया है.
Speaker of India's lower house also convened an all-party meeting on the security breach. It was on December 13 in 2001 that 5 terrorists entered Parliament House complex around 11:40 a.m. in an ambassador car fitted with a red light and a forged Home Ministry sticker on the car's windshield. As the car moved towards building gate number 12, one of the members of the Parliament House watch and ward staff became suspicious. He forced it to turn back, after which it hit the then Vice President's vehicle, and the terrorists got out and opened fire. By this time, an alarm was raised and all the building gates were promptly shut. A firefight ensued, lasting over 30 minutes. All 5 terrorists were killed, along with 8 security personnel and a gardener. At least 15 people were injured. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now we take a quick look at what is lined up on the 8th day of the winter session of Parliament today. In Lok Sabha, that is the lower house of Parliament, it will continue to discuss the Post Office Bill 2023, following which Home Minister Amit Shah will introduce revised 3 bills to amend India's criminal laws for consideration and passage. Discussion on all the 3 bills will take place simultaneously. The bills will be reintroduced after making certain changes recommended by the Parliamentary Standing Committee. While in Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house of Parliament, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will move the Appropriation Number 3 Bill 2023 and the Appropriation Number 4 Bill 2023 to return them to Lok Sabha for after consideration. After this, Home Minister Amit Shah will introduce and will move the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Second Amendment Bill 2023 and the Government of Union Territories Amendment Bill 2023 for consideration and passage. After passage of the bills, 33% reservation for women would be provided in the assemblies of Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry. Lok Sabha has already passed both the bills. The UN Global Refugee Forum is underway in Geneva. The largest international conference on refugee issues seeks to focus the international discussion on solutions rather than crisis. Being held from 13th to 15th of December, it aims to focus on a range of actors on finding solutions to the plight of refugees and to support the objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees. During the forum, 32 UN organizations and 49 UN country teams will sign up to a UN Common Pledge 2.0, committing to support refugee hosting countries with the inclusion of refugees in national plans, budgets and service delivery systems. Meanwhile, intergovernmental negotiations on the Security Council reforms are underway in UN, participating in which Permanent Representative of India to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said that multilateral institutions rarely die, they simply fade into irrelevance.
Conversations on convergence and divergence alone can only lead us so far. As diplomats, we know that countries do not change positions unless in a negotiating mode where we create possibilities of real and meaningful exchanges. Let me remind all of you that the Summit of the Future, unlike the intergovernmental negotiations, is actually an intergovernmental negotiating process. We need to get real. India, as the world's largest democracy, will continue to strive for the voice of the Global South to be heard on the urgency of immediate action in this regard.
Up next, we'll take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India now. The 22-day-long annual Vaikunta Ekadasi festival began in Ranganathaswamy Temple in South Indian state of Tamil Nadu. The temple and the corridors were illuminated with decorative lights. The opening of Paramapada Vasal gates will be the prime event on December 23rd. Around 2.5 lakh devotees are expected to visit the shrine throughout the festival days. The festival will conclude on 2nd January 2024. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra traversed across different states in South India. The Information, Education and Communications van travelled through the Anantapur district in Andhra Pradesh. A key aspect of the yatra is to facilitate direct interaction between the government and the beneficiaries by sharing personal stories and experiences of local masses, creating awareness about the central government schemes. With the onset of the winter session, the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary in northeastern Indian state of Assam is witnessing a surge in migratory bird footfall. The Wildlife Sanctuary authorities expect that this year more migratory bird species will arrive as compared to the previous year. After flying thousands of miles from Europe, America and Africa, thousands of migratory birds have now arrived at the Wildlife Sanctuary. India's Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held a meeting with the European Free Trade Association delegation led by Swiss State Secretary for Economic Affairs Helene Bergleiger Artida and Norwegian Minister of Trade and Industry Jo-Christian Vestre here on Wednesday. The minister discussed the progress of free trade agreement negotiations with EFTA nations and explored avenues to further strengthen partnerships across key sectors. Earlier, Piyush Goyal concluded a highly successful meeting with a delegation from the EFTA in July. The primary objective of these negotiations is to establish a fair, mutually beneficial and comprehensive trade deal between India and EFTA. The Dow Jones Industrial Average hit its first record closing high since January 2022. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq too ended sharply higher after the Fed signaled that its interest rate hiking policy of the last 2 years is at an end on Wednesday. The S&P 500 gained 1.37%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 1.38%. The Fed said it sees lower borrowing costs in 2024. Fed also left interest rates steady. The policy rate projected to be lowered by the end of 2024. Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell, in his press conference earlier, said historic tightening of monetary policy is likely over.
One of the things we're moving carefully about is that decision over that assessment, really, over whether we've done enough, really. You see that people are not writing down rate hikes. That's us thinking that we have done enough, but not feeling that really strongly, confidently, and not wanting to take the possibility of a rate hike off the table. Nonetheless, it's not the base case anymore, obviously, as it was, 60, 90 days ago.
Tesla is recalling over 2 million electric vehicles in the U.S. to install new safeguards for its Autopilot advanced driver assistance system. The National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration has raised concerns about potential misuse of the system. Tesla acknowledges that current controls may not be sufficient to prevent misuse, but disagrees with the regulator's analysis. The recall will include additional controls and alerts to reinforce drivers' responsibility. Let's talk of sports now. Around 1,400 top para athletes from around the country are competing at the maiden Khelo India Para Games 2023, which began in New Delhi on Sunday. On day 5, the athletes will fight in the final round of para powerlifting. para football, and in the group stages of para table tennis. So far, Haryana tops the medal tally with 31 golds, 35 silvers and 18 bronze medals. Uttar Pradesh are second on the medals table with 23 golds, 17 silvers and 9 bronze medals, followed by Tamil Nadu. The inaugural edition of the Games will continue till December 17th. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.